Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto Was Justice League's Fire Shadow. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. Naruto whistled a bit as he was now looking at the outskirts of the city. He had gotten out of the woods after a while, and was now there in front of the first city in his plan to see this world on a more personal level. So this is Metropolis, huh? Not as big as Law, but certainly a good sight. The blonde Hokage was very interested to see the world and the cities, namely those with recognized heroes, since he wanted to see what they were like in the flesh. He felt that one can only learn so much from magazines, rumor mills, and newspapers, and observing the people in question was a more complete way of understanding them. He still had his gear and weapons hidden in some scrolls should he need them, and at least he had his laptop to boot. And he was very keen on the idea on making sure to meet the heroes who resided here. He was already aware of Superman, but he was also aware that there were others in the city as well. He was aware of the one known as Steel, and the other being Superman's cousin, the one named Supergirl. That he had to admit was rather good looking, and would have really gotten the attention of guys who were around his physical age, and not his actual age, not to mention the attention of his godfather. He placed that aside however, and decided to go into the city, but not before making a few changes to himself. He took to the direction of a nearby car stop and grabbed something to eat and then do the changes, then head into the city and go to his work. Besides, he might pick up some brand new ideas to add to his creations. All the while, he decided to work on that idea of him making an autobiography of himself, and make a story out of it. He had no idea on how this might play out, but as he had learned very early in life, there was a first time for everything, and this might pan out well in the end. In Metropolis. Not too bad. Naruto stated to himself as he walked through the city, as he was now disguised with his hair now deep brown, and he placed on some contact lenses to change his eye color, and also had a henge on to hide his whisker marks. He was now moving on with the rest of the city crowd, and wanting to see just what this place was. He did have some prior reading on the city, and knew that this was going to be an interesting area, considering that a good number of people reside here. Not to mention the fact that this was also the home turf of Superman, his cousin, Steel, and a few others. He was not sure what he was going to do when he would meet them in person, but he was going to have to prepare himself for anything that might happen while he was there. As he moved through the streets, he also made sure to keep his eyes and ears open, as well as his battle-hardened senses for anything that might happen around him. The city was well known for having quite a number of more than interesting criminals, and he had yet to meet them. Most of the time, he had to deal with the garden variety crooks and criminals, as the Kyuubi snidely called them, and thought that they were small fry compared to the criminal lords, ninjas, and more that he and the blonde Jinchuriki had dealt with in their time together. And to some point, Naruto had to agree. He was very curious what sort of high-powered criminals were there in this world that he would have to watch out for. He soon arrived at one of the most recognized places in the city, and that was none other than the Daily Planet. He had to admit that it was impressive by the standards of buildings back in Konoha, but he was not going to try and compare it. For now however, he decided to go and grab a newspaper and see just what was on the news on this side of the world. He spotted a newspaper boy and asked for one and paid the guy with some of his money, and cracked open the news to see what would be there on the pages. One topic had to do with the actions of several countries on a variety of matters, another dealt with some new action by some celebrity or another, the actions of another company, though in the case of Metropolis, there was only Lex Gerp in the spotlight. There was mention of Superman doing some more good deeds, though there was some dissent towards the hero that was there for Naruto to read. The former Hokage could not help but notice that in the picture, the man had stress lines on his face, and he could relate as despite his youthful appearance, he felt the arrival of the set lines on his face when he was doing his job as Hokage. No doubt the guy was working his butt off to try and redeem his name, and Naruto had no problem with that as he expected it from the man. He looked at the rest of the newspaper, and when he was getting tired of reading it, he decided to store away the newspaper in his backpack, and moved on to see what else was going to happen. He stopped however when he spotted a number of people coming out of the tall building there. One of them appeared to be a dark-haired and blue-eyed woman who wore a white skirt, and a business-style top in light blue-violet color, and no doubt wore a second type of shirt underneath. The other was a guy with wide shoulders, tall to boot, and while the suit made him look normal, Naruto was willing to bet that underneath said suit the guy was seriously well built. The glasses might also give him a look that showed he was harmless, but the last person he knew who wore glasses was not in any way, shape or form, harmless. The woman was very attractive in his mind, and no doubt if he was still alive, his perverted godfather Jiraiya would already be making his move on her, and he would admit the same thing. But judging from the way the woman was with the man and how the man was close to the woman, that told him that he would not approve. Not to mention that the way the woman moved showed that she was skilled in defending herself, not to the level of facing highly trained assassins yet, but close enough to handle the odd thug and overconfident fellow with lecherous intentions. The guy on the other hand sent warning bells in his head, as he felt his danger senses warned him even more that this guy was not to be trifled with, though he was not evil looking in the slightest. But for some oddball reason, he looked somewhat familiar to him. Why is it I get the feeling I know that guy? Naruto decided to try and get an image of the man, and headed to a nearby camera store, and decided to get a disposable camera, namely the kind that had no flash, and would be easy to use. He was not sure what to make of these cameras, as they were a load more advanced than the ones he had seen back home, but after a while, he decided not to bother with the details on operation and focused on use. He then began to follow the group to see what was it about the guy that was making his ninja senses go on the alert, and giving him the message that he was no ordinary person. He moved at the other side, making sure to keep himself controlled and invisible, and it seemed to work a good deal, that is until the group got into a taxi and were now on their way somewhere in the city. He could have gone after them on foot, but doing that was not an option. Naruto decided that now was the time to go up to the air. He moved a bit further and entered an alleyway, making sure that he was alone, and no one was around to see him. Seeing that he was indeed alone, he quickly changed into his normal gear for ninja work, and also got a bottle of water out to wash out the hair dye, to return his hair to its natural blonde state. With that out of the way, he quickly moved on the walls with chakra on his feet and moved to the roof. As he got there, he decided to switch to sage mode, and focused on the dark-haired woman instead of the man. He had no idea if the man had the ability to sense him being tracked via chakra, since no one in this world seemed to use let alone know of chakra the way he did, but no sense taking risky gambits this early. But the very second he was able to sense chakra, he was quite surprised to sense that man's chakra. It was not human in a very real sense, and he knew that as compared to the chakra of the people around him, along with the man in that car. The man's was denser to a level, and also had a strange feel to it, almost like it was not part of the natural flow of chakra in a person, and he sensed that it was near Kage level chakra, or that of a Jinchuriki tapping into the initial stage of the tailed form, something he knew very well. He got up and decided to follow the signature, but not before deploying 2 Kage Bushin to remain behind, and gather more chakra for him to use. The nature energy here was a bit dull due to the modernization of the place, but not that bad to others. It took a while for him to follow the car as he used his kunai with the wire to move from building to building while using his chakra, which was channeled to his feet to hold on to the walls. And using his senses in sage mode to follow the car until it reached its destination, and at least it was near some docks. That allowed him to try and get a better vantage point, and where he quickly returned to using henge, only this time he took the appearance of one of the many dock workers, while making sure to change his hair color a bit with some chakra application. He made sure to keep himself cool and calm as he tracked the trio, and they were soon before a man who Naruto guessed was the one they came to see. He watched them carefully, silently hoping that he was going to find out just who the big guy was, and as soon as the man began to take notes and speak his turn, he waited. For what he had no idea, and as soon as the interview was over, the blonde noted him place his arms on his chest in a cross pattern, as he seemed to smile at something as the two who were with him were rather animated in their discussion. He decided to take a shot at it and took a picture of the man. Once he did so, he decided to try another experiment and headed towards the trio. He knew that he had to time it right, and make it look like an accident, as he took out some of his loose change from his pocket. He then dropped the coins down, and made sure that some of the change rolled to the direction of the people in question. He then spoke out as the coins stopped before the trio. "Damn it, they rolled out of my pockets again." That worked as the man he had been looking at and observing moved to his knees to help get the coins, and spoke to him as soon as he got up and offered the coins to him. "Here you go, I think it's better that you have a wallet on hand next time." Naruto smiled a bit at that and replied as normally as he could manage. He gave a sheepish grin and scratched the back of his head as he pocketed his coins and spoke. "Sorry about that, I was a bit of a butterfingers with coins growing up. My name's Curtis Riley, new here in the docks. You are?" "Hello then Curtis, the name is Clark Kent from Smallville." Naruto raised an eyebrow at that, though he did that very slowly. "Smallville? There's a place with that kind of name. Better focus on the mission of finding out more of this guy." "Nice to meet you as well Clark. Anyway, you happen to be a reporter, I take it?" "Yeah, from the Daily Planet, and so are my friends here. Meet Lois Lane." Naruto looked at Lois Lane, and mentally whistled at the way she looked, which was definitely a looker with the dark hair, well-featured face, and eyes. Not to mention the figure to boot. He extended his hand and she shook his hand as well. In that moment, he was able to tell that despite her being a beauty, this lady had some strong muscle tone, and with his battle-hardened senses, could tell that she had combat training, possibly self-defense. He decided to keep his normal persona under wraps, and just stick to the persona he developed when in henge. "Good to meet you, Miss Lane." "Same to you Curtis, you full of part-time." "Part-time, supposed to be signing off today anyway." Lois nodded, and that was when Clark introduced the orange-haired and freckle-faced guy next to them. And this is Jimmy Olsen, one of our photographers in the Daily Planet. Naruto looked at the guy and saw that he was fresh-faced, eager, dedicated, and also very energetic, reminded him slightly of himself when he was still younger. It made him grin in his usual fashion and spoke to Jimmy. "Nice to meet you, Jimmy. Likewise, I am also one of the best photographers in the planet. You can ask both Clark and Lois. I worked with them a long time." "I see. Anyway, I have to get a move on. Don't want my bosses to be thinking I was slacking off." As soon as he left them, Naruto kept himself focused on getting away from them without raising any alarm bells, and it was not long before he was in the clear. He sighed a bit and removed the hinge. But that was when he heard a massive explosion happening in the same docks, and felt the explosion as well. He looked to see what was going on, and it seemed that the dock workers had an accident, and he looked around carefully to see the people there moving around in different directions. Some ran away, others moved in to see what was going on, and others moved in to help. That was when he noted that Clark had disappeared from Lois and Jimmy. He raised an eyebrow at that, and then spotted none other than Superman. He kept himself hidden as best he could and calm as he watched the Man of Steel as he was called in saving the people who were in the area of the detonation. Once that was done and the fire department came, he saw Superman talking to the dock workers on what happened, and he was in a pose that he recognized easily with a stoic but calm and relaxed look. Naruto took the picture of that and soon left. Hours later. "Man, feels good to be on a bed," Naruto said as he was now resting in a hotel that he managed to pay for with his funds from being a writer, and he was soon going to have room service brought up for dinner an hour or so later. It annoyed him that they did not have ramen, but decided to try other food as well to see how it would fare. For now, however, some rest was in order as well as a meal. He dozed off for at least an hour or so, as he had gone off to have the pictures developed, and soon paid for them and got to the hotel. He had only dozed off for an hour or so before he heard the doorbell and the call. Room service. Naruto woke up quickly and headed to the door and opened it to let the man walk in with a tray. It still amazed him that a guy could actually come here and order food and drink in the comfort of their own room. Sure, he had food in his own place and could ask AM, the one she and her father hired at times for food deliveries, come to the Hokage residence, but this was different either way, since he did not have to pay a large amount for it. He however placed that aside and began to eat the food once it was on his table. The food comprised of salmon sashimi, roasted beef, hot potatoes, and rice balls, along with a pitcher of cold lemon tea. The food was custom ordered by him, and since he was going to be in here in Metropolis, he was going to make the most of it. He was happy that he had gotten a lot of money to stay in the hotel for a week and a half. Once he was done eating, he decided to get to work and see what was it that made him think that this Clark Kent was hiding something about himself. He got the pictures he had, and also began with the picture of Clark. He took out a scroll he had hidden, and called out a kunai. He then channeled a bit of his wind chakra to increase the cutting power. He had to be careful though, since overdoing it might cut through the table and even the floor, and the last thing he wanted was to explain to the people who owned the place why one of their tables was cut in half or worse. Once he was done with what he had in mind, he made his next move, and there he made a very interesting discovery. Well, now this is a surprise. Naruto looked at the image before him and smirked slightly. He had taken the newly acquired picture of Superman that he had from the docks only hours before, and had placed the cutouts of the man he had pictured on the image of Superman, namely the suit, shoes, and glasses minus the eyes. And when he looked at the image, he could not help but see the similarities, and what he sensed from his use of senjutsu only served to convince him further. He decided for now to place the discovery he made aside, as he then decided to destroy the images. Clark Kent was Superman and apparently was working in that place called the Daily Planet as a cover. And he could not help but shake his head at how no one but him had figured out the true identity of the hero of Metropolis. Then again, if one were to look at Clark, despite the size and build, he looked like a guy who got beaten on for his lunch money on a regular basis. He should know, since he used to get hit a lot by bullies as a kid, before he developed a reputation as prankster without equal, and also developed his taijutsu skills. As he took the images, he decided to rely on his wind chakra to slice the pictures into nothing but bite-sized chunks, and stuff them into the trash bin. He could have gone for fire chakra, but that would have triggered the fire alarms, and he was not in the mood for that to happen. He then took a shower, and when he was done with the said shower, he got back into the room and opened the curtains to see the city, and admitted that it looked nice at night. Once that was done, he decided to open up his laptop and begin to write his stories, connecting his portable internet USB drive and getting to work, as it was time to earn another internet paycheck. In the meantime, he was going to do something in Metropolis to get feel of the place, and also see if he could see Superman in action, as well as learn more of him to see just what sort of guy he was underneath the cape. The next day, Naruto was up and about early in the morning, and decided to call the desk that he planned to go outside early, and have his room locked down until he got back. He has spent at least 6 hours on his latest work as Sage Thompson, and also began to send the drafts for his own comic. He made it up as a way to chronicle his own life, and decided to use his first name as the title of the comic and the character, and using the name Masashi Kishimoto as his pen name for this side of the deck. It was a name that seemed right to him, and he went to work in making the history of the place that he had grown up on Japan, and had learned about anime and manga, and wanted to make his own series that could be accepted in Western audience groups. That was why he also decided that when he had the chance, he was going to learn how to draw manga, and since he had good enough memories of his fellow ninja and the people in the elemental nations, allies and enemies, he could draw them. It was just a try and he was not sure how effective it was, but no sense not trying something new every now and then. He also recalled that it was the way that Jiraiya made the book that shaped his life, and that of Nagato, who he found out later in life, was one of his fellow clansmen in the Uzumaki side of things, and he hoped had found peace in the afterlife alongside his family and friends. If he could make a story about the life he lived that could inspire others as that book Jiraiya made inspired others, then why not do it? Besides, if he had to do book signing, there was always Henge. Once he was done with that and saved the files, he left the hotel and carried a special note in his pockets. Once he felt that he was in the clear, he moved to an alleyway and out of sight of anyone else. He then decided to get decked out in his regular clothes and see the city the only way he liked. He quickly climbed up the nearby wall and tossed out his kunai to the next building, and began to move around the city, sampling the sights and already seeing the first rays of sunlight coming up to cover the city. And as he moved from place to place, he looked down to see how the people were, and they were acting like the people he had seen back there in Law. Some moved about to do their daily chores, others went to work, some wandered about, and enjoying the day. And naturally when he moved over them in his outfit and mask, they were soon reacting, though in a way that he did not expect as they spoke out. Look. Up in the sky. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, I have no idea what or who that is. There were people looking up at him as he moved over the city using his kunai with the wire and on occasion his own chakra chains, and he wagered a guess this was how Superman would be known, seeing as this was the man's home city. And he found the lines rather amusing to boot. As he moved over the ropes and swinging away like a maniac, he stopped over at the Daily Planet and figured he could move around to say hi as it were. In Perry's office. Perry was currently discussing some matters pertaining to the incident yesterday with his reporters, and naturally two of his best, Lois Lane and Clark Kent, were there along with the others. He was eager to see if they could find some news about Superman, and see if they could help change the image he had on him, and they had good reason to do so. Perry held Superman in high regard and wanted to try and help him recover the trust of the people, and while he knew that Superman was doing an admirable job already in trying to clear his name, it was far from easy. Not many people were willing to forgive Superman for being used to invade their world by Darkseid, even though it had already been known that Superman had been brainwashed and was not himself. Alright, where do we stand with Superman? One spoke. Still alright, Chief, but not everyone in Metropolis is going to let it go. I know that, but we know that he's been working his butt off to clear his name, and I can even see the lines on his face, and I don't leave the office until 5. We could at the very least help him out so he does not have to go all out. Unknown to Perry, Clark was smiling as he knew that at least here in his workplace, he had a good number of supporters, Lois being one of them, which helped him deal with a lot of things. Part of him wanted to tell her the truth that he and Superman were the same, but if experience was anything to go by, as she knew who he really was and others found out about it, they would be gunning after her in no time flat. And he was not in the mood for them to attack the woman he happened to be very much attracted to. Lois turned and noted the smile on Clark's face, and smiled a bit as she nudged him gently on the ribs. You okay there, Smallville? Clark turned and nodded a bit while smiling. Yeah, I am fine, just thinking about how Superman must feel to have supporters here in the planet. Yeah, he's done a lot for the city and the people, so he does deserve to have allies here, right? Plus he's not lied before to anyone either, so we won't lie about him. Not like the other news stations have been doing lately. Before anyone could say anything though, one of the staff came into the office and shouted out. Chief, we got news. The assembled reporters turned and Perry spoke next. What's going on? We've heard that some of the people in the streets have seen a guy moving around the city in the air. Who? That was when another voice came on the scene outside the window of Perry's office. That would be me. Adebayo. The assembled group of reporters and one disguised Kryptonian turned as one to the window, and there sure enough was the Hokage, decked in full attire and crouching on the ledge and giving them a wave. He looked at Lois and seemed to smile at her and winked at the same time. That made Lois raise an eyebrow and a frown from Clark, as Perry spoke to the man before them, all who was disguised. You're the Hokage. What are you doing here in Metropolis? What? The guy can't take a tour of the cities every now and then just cause he wears a mask. I won't be here long, so don't worry, I ain't here to upstage Superman either. I am just here to see the city and the rest of the country, but if there's anything happening down there that ain't good, then I won't hesitate to help. See ya. Naruto turned and then unleashed his chakra chain, and the energy chain soon got to a nearby building, digging into the concrete and off he went, swinging away off to the rest of the city. leaving behind a group of people who were surprised at the appearance of a hero who was supposed to be based only in the law area. Clark had managed to see through the mask and was surprised to see that the Hokage was actually a teenager who looked to be at least 17 or younger, at least as far as he was able to see. In hindsight, that made the Hokage not much older than Kara in a sense, and he decided to get a chance to talk to the youth, but not before going to get some help. He did appreciate the fact that the Hokage seemed to be the kind who helped others, but he was not going to take any chances too early, until he knew the young man more. Already the reporters moved out and the Daily Planet were on the move to see if they could track and pin down the Hokage, and find out just what was the reason he was here in Metropolis. They were not the only ones, however, as one certain corrupt but intelligent businessman criminal mastermind was also interested on what was going on, now that his secretary had informed him of the sighting. This new hero was thought to have resided in Law, only so why he was here was a very interesting thing. And after seeing the abilities of this being, looking him over was going to be something that would be possibly worth the time and investment. In the city, the blonde moved through the city with chakra chains and wired kunai, and then spotted what appeared to be a bunch of thugs robbing a bank in broad daylight, no less. He blown wondered just what was going through the minds of the criminals in Metropolis. They should already know that Superman called this place him, and from what he learned, the police here were top-notch when it counted, so why bother robbing the place when it was either going to be the cops or Superman and those with him that were going to come in and get you. Either they've gotten used to seeing him or they're thinking with all the things he's been doing, he is not going to be around. The blonde Jinchuriki decided that now was the right time to at least halt this, and who knows, he might run into the heroes of the city in question later. He moved to the next building, and once he used his chakra chain, quickly moved to where the bank was, and quickly tossed out some wire, and grabbed one of the crooks as he flew overhead. The guy cried out as he was yanked off of his feet, and was soon finding himself hanging over the street tied up in wire over a street pole. The group of thugs below looked up and saw Naruto as he was crouching over the pole and looking at them. The same could be said for the police, as they had been expecting Superman, Supergirl, or Steel to be here, not this guy in a mask. One of the thugs shouted and aimed a shotgun as Naruto quickly flicked his hand, and out came a shuriken that lodged itself right in the front of the barrel as he moved in, leaping at the man. The guy screamed like a little girl as Naruto knocked him down to the ground and was out like a light, as the former Hokage made his move and rolled to land a solid rising sidekick to the head of one of the thugs, sending him to the side and out cold like his buddy. The other guy tried to attack him with a hidden knife, but Naruto quickly got out a kunai, and used the ring on the handle to catch said knife, and with some quick movements, moved the blade away and disarmed the guy, and then introduced an elbow charge into the guy's sternum. That sent the man down as Naruto quickly used the kunai he had to stab the guy next to him, but not in a fatal place as he nailed the guy to the wall. He turned to face the last robber, but that was handled well enough as the guy was now surrendering to the police. And for good reason, as three figures appeared nearby. Naruto could not help but whistle as he was now face to face with none other than Supergirl herself, along with her cousin, Superman. He had expected one of them to turn up when that bank robbery was going on, but not both of them at the same time. As far as he could see, the Man of Steel was a lot more imposing in person than in the pictures, though he noted some stress lines on his face, and he did not look as healthy as his other pictures did, though he had seen some fairly new ones. No doubt he had been working non-stop to repair his good name, and the effects were there for him to see. Naruto had to give this guy credit for that, and he smiled a bit underneath the mask he wore and gave them a wave. Well now, nice to finally meet Superman and company. Sorry about the mess, it wasn't my best effort, but at least they did not get far. Superman sighed a bit as he and the two others landed. Kara eyed the thugs a bit, and was slightly surprised at how fast they had been taken down. She had heard of the Hokage in the news, but did not view it all that much as she believed that if you've seen one metahuman, you've seen them all, regardless of the powers. It was not that she was against them or anything, but she was used to meeting them a lot, so she was a bit used to it. Steel on the other hand was curious how this new guy got here, and somehow avoided revealing himself to anyone until now. The guy looked to be alright, but Steel was not going to rely entirely on first impressions. Superman then stepped forward and spoke to the Hokage, and Naruto wondered just what was it that the man was going to talk to him about. How old are you, Hokage? That was something that Naruto was not expecting for a moment, until he recalled something about Superman. Apparently he had some form of powerful vision. Some rumors said that it allowed him to see through things. That was rumors, but if there was one thing Naruto knew to be true, sometimes rumors were a bit too close to the truth. Everyone thought that Rinnegan was a mutation and was not going to come back again the world, but it did in Nagato, Toby, and Madara. Everyone thought that the Jubi and the Sage were stories, and they turned out to be true, so if this guy had the ability to see through things, then he was not going to take a chance and think that it's not possible. Why are you asking Superman? Clark sighed a bit and spoke. You look to be around at least 16 or something, shouldn't you be in school or something instead of risking your life? You should not doing these things as if it's a fantasy thing kids have in their heads. Naruto felt a tick rise to the side of his head at that comment. Sure, he looked young due to his bloodline, senjutsu training, and the Kyuubi's chakra, but being called or at the least implied as being a kid was a bit too darn annoying for his liking. He would have found it funny and would have joked about it or laughed it off, but being called a kid as if he was a newbie in fighting was annoying to him. He wasted no time and got into the face of Superman, surprising him, Steel, and Supergirl, as not many people would do that to him, and it seemed that some of the people who had cameras were also surprised, and half expected the two heroes to get into a fight. "What did you call me?" Something about the tone in the Hokage's voice told Clark that he had taken offense to that, and seeing the angry expression through the mask with the X-ray vision confirmed it. That was enough information to tell Clark that he should try to talk to the young man and resolve this before it got ugly. "Look, I didn't want to sound offensive to you since I have seen you in action already on the news from Law, but you're rather young to be doing this kind of thing. You can do a lot better things before you try taking into this kind of life, you know." Naruto then pointed to Supergirl and spoke seriously. "And she isn't a bit too young for this line of work." Supergirl was a bit annoyed, or rather, very annoyed at the guy pointing at her. Sure, she was rather young by Argonian terms, but she had already done her fair share of crime fighting, and had even helped in stopping Darkseid's invasion, along with stopping her cousin when he was brainwashed and went rogue. To be pointed at and called a kid by a new arrival was something she was not too keen on, and she made that clear as she stomped over to the blonde Hokage and spoke. "Who are you calling a kid, Buster?" Naruto was not too put out as being glared at by a rather attractive blonde-haired and blue-eyed female, and her choice of outfit was not too bad a thing, and he could understand the reaction as he would have reacted the same way. But he was not going to let that stop him from saying his piece. He was no longer a kid, and had more than enough years to be as cranky and serious as he wanted. You look to be around, what, 16 or 17? 17's my age and I am no kid. I've been doing this for a while now and I am no slouch." "Well, neither am I, and for your information, I am no kid. If there's anyone around here who's been getting on in the years, that would be me." Clark was curious about that as he looked once more at the young man whose mask he could see through with his X-ray vision. The guy looked to be around the age he had seen, though he noted some signs of experience, so maybe calling him a kid was a bit of a mistake, and he did show age on his whiskered face. But he also noted that his eyes, which were deep blue, also spoke of something old and experienced. So maybe he might have jumped the gun, as it were. That was lost to Supergirl, who was not using her X-ray vision, as she was still locked in a glaring match with Naruto, while Steel was looking on, trying to get a feel of the situation, and possibly try to defuse it before it got worse. But before anything could happen, there was a large explosion off in the distance, and that got the attention of the group as Clark spoke. "This will have to wait, we need to go and find out what just happened." "But, Car, now is not the time, we need to check this out, we can talk with Hokage about this at a later date." Car sighed reluctantly and gave the blonde shinobi a glare as she was soon joining her cousin, as Clark turned to face Naruto. "Listen, I can understand that you want to do this to help her be recognized, but you're still new to this kind of life, so try to live a normal life, okay?" As the heroes left, Naruto glared at Clark. He knew the guy meant well, but if he had even the slightest idea of what he had been through, what he said was not going to count for much. Naruto had lived a life that would have made most young men and women who were just regular folks quake in their shoes, and had faced so many life-or-death situations, that had he been a regular kid, as Superman had put it, he would have either been given an early funeral, sent to child services, or considered mentally unstable. "Live a normal life, ha? I'd rather not, thank you very much. And I am not doing this to be recognized, at least not yet." Naruto was tempted to go ahead and let them deal with whatever it was that got their attention away from him, but something was tagging his senses and telling him to go and see things through. Besides that, he was rather eager to see just how good Superman, Supergirl, and Steel were in action. Now to see if these people, or whatever they are as good as the newspapers make them to be. The blonde shinobi quickly tossed out a kunai connected with metal wire to a nearby wall, which was reinforced by his chakra. Once the kunai bit hard into the wall, he began to move up and swing to the wall. Once he got there, he clamped onto the wall with chakra, and began to move quickly from building to building by using another kunai. This process was not as fast as his chakra chains of the flying thunder god jutsu of his father, but it was going to help him a lot, and keep his real power hidden away from those who managed to take a look at him. As he made it there, he spotted a large number of people gathering and saw that there were several armored trucks that were smoking, telling him that this was like that event he had dealt with before. He moved up to a high tower and looked to observe how the two cousins and their armored-to-the-skin companion were doing. They seemed to be doing fine with the bank robbers, as the two super-powered siblings crashed in and blocked the bullets from the men. Naruto knew what guns were and had to admit that they scared him a bit, since they were faster moving and therefore harder to block, but he knew that they made quite a racket, and needed to be maintained more than most, even if one had bought the attachments to silence them. He found that out by checking out a gun owner's magazine, when he decided to find out just what were those strange devices used by the police and the robbers he had fought with before. Superman and Supergirl took the hits, and the bullets merely bounced off of them, and the same could be said for Steel's armored form. The first two were a bit surprising to Naruto, and the second was to be expected, since the guy had a lot of plating on him. Naruto watched the trio and saw that they were doing alright, and the blonde cousin of Superman was proving not to be a slouch when it came to socking bad guys in the jaw. But that was when two green beams smashed into Superman, and he could hear the pain coming from the guy in blue and red. That shout was just the beginning as Superman was sent flying back into one of the armored cars. He could already hear the results of the Man of Steel being sent flying away from his comrades, as Supergirl called out to her cousin in shock. He watched as she turned to find out who attacked them, but got her own answer as another pair of beams came in her direction. She managed to fly up, but the shooter hit her, and she too hit the ground fast and hard, and she was also in pain. Steel turned, and sure enough out came the enemy as Naruto himself got to see him. And he was definitely different. There was a torn face there, and yet the rest of him was all metal, wires, and a host of other glowing parts that Naruto had no idea about. At first he thought he was looking at an all-metal version of the combat puppets used by Suna Ninja and Gaara's brother Conqueror, but as he stretched his chakra senses a bit, he was surprised to find that there was some life in that being. And in the back of his mind, he felt the Kyuubi stir in him. He watched as that guy with the metallic body fought with Steel, and for a moment or so, it seemed that they were evenly matched. That is until the living being of metal managed to sidestep a strike to the head and kick Steel in the stomach. The sound of metal hitting metal made even him wince from where he was, and he wondered if Steel was still alive. The guy was and seemed to be still able to take the fight to his foe, as he swung that massive sledgehammer again. The strike hit the metallic being and sent him crashing into a nearby van, and it seemed to be over, but that was until the guy came back and tossed a massive steel slab of steel. The man managed to smash it aside with his hammer, but that was the opening the guy needed to charge in and hit Steel with a kick to the chest, and followed with a knee and a serious right hook. Superman and Supergirl tried to get up, but then the guy fired the same green-colored beams at both of them, and Naruto saw both Superman and Supergirl take the hits and cry out in pain. The metal beam came closer and it was there that Naruto noted the man's chest open, to reveal a large glowing green rock, and that seemed to throw his senses off a bit, telling him that glowing hunk of stone was a lot more dangerous than it looked. The state of the heroes was pretty bad, so now it was time for him to move as he now recalled just how this figure was. Metallo was pleased as he was now going to finally eliminate the two thorns to his side. Steel was a problem if he was not watched, but as soon as Supergirl and Superman were out of the way, that armored man was done for. And he could not help but relish the weakened and pained looks of both cousins as he taunted them. You both are finally going to be gone from here, and maybe I can finally get the chance to rule over this damned city, once I dispose of a certain backstabbing businessman. Now let's get down to me getting rid of you both permanently. Before he could finish his rant of the heroes, Metallo felt several rather sharp scraping sounds, and he turned to see some sharp metallic discs burying themselves into the concrete, and soon he spotted Naruto himself. Metallo growled at his new attacker and spoke to Naruto. So you're Los Angeles' hero on the block, huh? The Hokage as they call you. What in the blazes are you doing here in Metropolis? The blonde in the meantime was a bit more silent, seeing this walking monstrosity of metal, and when it made him remember the times he had to deal with ninjas who use puppets, and also the story of Sakura's battle with Sasori himself. The worst however was when Toby used the bodies of dead ninja as his own puppets of war long ago. There had been a few other battles with ninjas willing to do anything for power in his time, even giving up their bodies to do so. And those kinds of people gave Naruto more than his fair share of headaches. This one, the one he read about as Metallo, was a totally different kettle of fish. But it was obvious that this guy was no pushover. Metallo was beginning to lose his cool and quickly grabbed a nearby pole from the road and tossed it like a spear at Naruto. Hey, it's considered bad manners to ignore someone asking questions. Naruto quickly took out one of his swords and channeled his chakra into it and cut the pole in half, then quickly vanishing from sight, much to Metallo's surprise, and appeared behind him. And where I come from, Tin Man, it's twice as rude to be throwing spears at people. Metallo turned and saw the young man cock a fist at him, and he grinned or tried to grin, as he was thinking that this guy did not have the strength to hit him as Superman would, and he made that obvious as he spoke. Go ahead, give me your best shot. He showed his metallic chin, expecting the arrogant but fast young man to be screaming in pain with a broken hand, wrist, and arm. What he did not expect as to be punched hard enough to literally send him flying backwards off his feet and smashing into the armored van. The van was caved in and sent back a bit, much to the surprise of the onlookers, and to all three heroes, as they had not expected that. Clark had thought that the glowing sphere of energy was the reason he was able to cave in the truck from his debut on TV. While Kara and Steel had thought that few could knock Metallo like that. As for Metallo, he could not help but shake himself a bit, and look at the young man who did not even show any sign of pain in his punch, and he had to admit that he was not expecting that blonde to be that strong. As for Naruto, he silently thanked Sakura and Tsunade for the training in channeling chakra into his body to increase his overall strength. He had decided to test this attack and reserve his Senjutsu chakra if he needed an edge or his purified Kyuubi chakra, since the latter was not ideal for something like this. And it seemed that he would not have to resort to that just yet, which was a good thing to the blonde shinobi, as he readied his sword to fight again. "You've got some serious missiles there, Hokage. Always thought only Superman or his cousin could hit me that hard, but you can't harm me, I am indestructible." Yeah, I've heard that before, Metal Brain. You planning to fight or talk me to death?" Metallo glared and got up, grabbed a large section of the armored car, and quickly tossed it at Naruto like a frisbee, a razor-sharp and jagged metallic frisbee to be more accurate. Naruto wasted no time, and quickly flipped over the attack, and moved to face Metallo. The two attacked one another with fists and sword. Metallo proved to be rather tough to Naruto, as his sword was not cutting at all, and that made Metallo grin like a maniac as he taunted the blonde. "See? Your sword's useless against me." Naruto remained silent and quickly flipped back as Metallo decided to take a shot and charged right at Naruto, intent on giving the young man a serious punch to the jaw. Naruto, however, was quick on his feet and dodged the punch, rolled out of the way when Metallo tried a knee strike, and then flipped up to land a seriously strong chakra-enhanced spinning sidekick to the head of the cyborg, and sent him forward, and trying to balance himself. This allowed Naruto to quickly come up with a plan, and when it came to play, he charged at Metallo, who recovered and launched a fist at Naruto, who moved out of the way and dropped some smoke bombs. The bombs went off, but Metallo was able to recover, turn around and launch an attack at Naruto, as the smoke was soon moving away. "Nice move, Blondie. You might actually know how to be a ninja, but old trick don't work on one who has special vision." The attack caught Naruto in the stomach, and the blonde groaned as Metallo grinned at that, while the others looked on in shock and horror. Clark most of all, since he had tried to move and assist the Hokage in fighting Metallo, but the attacks Metallo had used had weakened him. The same could be said for Kara and for Steel. He was still trying to get his armor to recover from the attacks, and she was also trying to fight off the effects of the kryptonite blasts. But they and the others, including Metallo, were in for a surprise when Naruto looked up and grinned, speaking as if the attack did nothing to him at all. "Too bad you were looking at the wrong Hokage, Tin Man." The people watched as Naruto's body suddenly poofed away, and there were large numbers of paper tags there with some form of writing. The tags were also suddenly burning, and before Metallo could react, the tags exploded with the force of several crates of TNT. Naruto had been busy enhancing the explosive qualities of his explosive tags recently, and the results of said changes were obvious as Metallo was sent flying backwards off his feet. He looked and was surprised to see Naruto above him, and then released several kunai that were also tagged with explosive tags. These weapons quickly lodged in the area where his kryptonite heart was, and due to the enhanced explosions, were enough to force the panels open. He hit the ground hard, and before he could react, Naruto was there with a very large sphere of glowing energy in hand, as the blonde shinobi struck hard. "Take this in that rock heart of yours." Adamura Sengen. The very second the attack connected to Metallo's kryptonite heart, the blast was immediate, and unleashed a massive cloud of debris all over the place. The ground shook with the force of a bomb going off, and there was a large scream coming from Metallo. The people who were there braced themselves and covered their eyes as the blast of wind and dust was everywhere. It took a while before the smoke cleared and there was a very deep crater on the ground. That was when they spotted Metallo being carried out by the Hokage on his shoulder, as if he was a feather pillow, and then tossed aside, and in the area where the kryptonite heart was, it was not there anymore. The blonde looked about and then did some hand gestures, and then to the eyes of everyone in the area, there were several poofs of smoke, and there appeared more of the Hokage, at least a dozen or more as the middle spoke to them. "Go and find any of those rocks and get them all gathered." "Hi." With that done, the other Hokages moved away as the apparent original moved to get to the three heroes. Kara tried to get up as she felt the effects of the kryptonite injuries fade away a bit more, but to her surprise, the Hokage then scooped her up in his arms bridal style, and moved to a nearby bus shed that was not totaled by the fighting. That was something that no one expected to see, least of all Kara, who was blushing as she looked at Naruto. "You alright?" Kara said nothing as she was still trying to get used to the fact that only minutes ago, she was trading barbs and glaring matches with this guy, and now she was rescued by said guy. She looked at him and despite her weakened state, used her X-ray vision to see him, and got another reason to blush when she saw Naruto's face, and she had to admit that he was rather good looking. Naruto had no idea why the superpowered blonde teen was turning red on the face, but he would have to be a liar to say that he did not find it rather attractive and amusing. It was only when he realized that like her cousin she could have vision to see through things, so she must have seen his face, and that made him smirk mentally. But he managed to get his thoughts focused and spoke once more as they reached the bus shed. "Hey, not that I mind the looking at all, but I asked if you were alright." "Oh yeah, I'm fine. Just need to rest up a bit more." Naruto grinned behind his mask, and as soon as he looked away, the Kagebushin were coming back. Keeping in mind how the two flying heroes reacted to the Rock of Green, he made sure to ask something to the recovering Superman, who was with them now as Steel was back on his feet. And apparently alive and breathing to boot. Do you have anything that can shield you from that glowing rock powering Tin Man over there? Yeah, it's lead. That's the only stuff that can block the kryptonite radiation. Huh? So that's the name of said rock. Alright then, I'll just have my buddies take it a long distance away, and when you recover enough, they will tell me where they hid it, so you can get that lead stuff you need. Clark had no idea how that was possible, and was about to ask when Naruto spoke to him once more, while pointing at a very tall building at the distance. They said that they placed all of the pieces in a very large bag on that tower over there. Can you see it? Clark did so, and sure enough, the bag was there, held by metallic wire, and he could see that the kryptonite was there in the bag, so he was assured that the man was not hiding it from him and the others. Yes, I can. Good, see you Superman, or should I call you Clark Kent? Clark's eyes whitened at that as he turned around to face Naruto, and it took a lot of his willpower to not react to the fact that the Hokage had just figured out. But as he did so, all he saw was a swirling circle of leaves as Naruto was no longer there. The only thing he saw was a note which was sealed with the man's leaf signature. He took it up and saw that there was a message. To Superman Clark Kent. Don't worry about your identity. I am not telling anyone since I can tell that you are a good man, and you carry a lot of burdens on your shoulders, namely that incident with that dark whatever that alien nutjob's name is. I might sound weird, but I know what it's like to be treated with disdain and suspicion, and I know the desire to work hard to prove yourself that you are a different person, and not what others think you are. I read all there is to know about you before and after that, and I have to say, you have a lot of guts and grit. I liked it a lot. You could have used your powers to do what you like and kick the law on the ass. I know how that goes since I used to give the law the finger when I was younger. But you use your powers for the right reasons, and I learned to fight for a better purpose than just pulling pranks and causing mischief. That's why I respect you, so I promise to you as a ninja, and as the Hokage I will not reveal your identity to anyone for as long as I live, and I wish you the best in what you do. Abayo. P.S. This note is going to burn up, so I suggest you drop it. I'm not kidding, by the way. The special seal I put in it kicks in a minute after that note's opened. Clark then was surprised when the note did burst into flame, which quickly reduced it to ash, and he could not help but shake his head as Kara walked up to him. What happened? Where did he go? Clark shook his head and spoke to Kara in private. He knows who I am. Kara's eyes widened as she digested that bit of information. Clark's part of being Superman had been one of the best kept secrets they both had, and now it seemed that someone else knew about it. How did that even happen in the first place? She looked at her cousin and spoke to him as calmly as she could possibly manage. How did he do it? I don't know, but he said he was not going to reveal it. And for some reason I get the feeling that he is telling the truth. Kara. Are you sure, Clark? For all we know he was lying to make you lower your guard or something. I know, but the fact is that he went out of his way to get the kryptonite away from us, and if he wanted to reveal how he knew who I really am, he could have done it the very second he found out about it. All we can do is see if he is going to do what he promised. Later. Naruto was back in his hotel and had taken all of his clothing, weapons, and armor back into the storage scrolls, and sat down to begin meditating to heal himself with Senjutsu chakra. The battle with that Metallo guy was definitely a step above the norm. The only thing he felt could come close was the battle his wife Sakura, alongside the old lady of Tsunochiyo with the Akatsuki member and puppet prodigy Sasori. That kind of foe was something that Naruto was not fully prepared for, but he had to admit that the battle was interesting. And it seemed that as he recovered from the injuries, the Kyuubi, or rather Kurama, agreed with him. Finally we get to have a chance to fight a decent fight. That metallic being in human form was a far better challenge than those punks and low-level wretches we dealt with before. You seem happy all of a sudden, Kurama. Weren't you listening to me, Brad? If this is but one villain, then perhaps this world can be challenging after all. Well, I'm glad you approve, because if that battle was any indication, this world's got a lot more in store for us. About bloody time too. This place was getting boring. Say, why don't we try and see if we can handle facing that Superman in a sparring match? That should make sure you can get the damned rust in your joints to leave. You want to run that by me again, Kurama? You want me to face Superman in a match? You realize that the guy's got Kage level chakra in him, even to the point he's got the chakra level to be close to a Jinchuriki in initial form. And he's not even a human to boot, he's not even an enemy of ours or a criminal, and you want me to fight him? Don't be such a wuss, Naruto. You haven't had a decent workout of a fight for weeks to a month here in this world. Even back there in where we came from, the fights have been few and far in between. You might train your butt off every now and then, but nothing beats fighting an actual opponent, and even Kage Bushin will not cut it anymore. Besides, it's a sparring match, not a death match, you blonde-haired dolt, and you have to admit that fighting someone like that is something that can really be a good way to get you back to shape. I cannot believe I just heard you say that. Let's just focus on staying off the radar for now. The less likely we get attention to ourselves, the better. Now I'm the one who is shocked. You actually want to stay off the radar. What happened to the blonde dolt who loved to get attention whenever he could? He grew up, and I were to recall, you approved of it. Ha, point taken. So we're going to just stay here in the city then? No, I'm off to see the rest of the world, maybe Gotham City. Heard the place should be interesting. The Kyuubi seemed to accept that, and while Naruto could tell that Kurama was now taking another nap, he could tell that his resident Biju was mumbling about the chance to finally find some new and worthy foes to fight. And truth be told, he was actually looking forward to the chance to finally fight some worthwhile foes as well. For now, however, he decided to lay low and just observe while writing more of his stories before packing it up and going to Gotham City. He was also going to check out just what other villains were out there in the city, to see just what he could dig up, as well as possibly find some more inspiration, as his old sensei and godfather used to call it. Once he felt fully recovered, he went back to writing as he began to recall some of his adventures with his allies back in his world, plus he recalled just who he had seen, namely a certain reporter lady, and Superman's cousin. For the rest of the week, Naruto remained incognito, a feat that Kurama was still trying to grasp, considering the way Naruto acted in their world, and had focused only on making his next set of books, and also on that story that was based on his life. He did on occasion go out to see the rest of Metropolis, and also take a peek at what else he could see as well as who else. On one occasion, he got to tangle with none other than Livewire, formerly known as Leslie Wilkins. The female villain had been terrorizing some of the residents and trying to cause mayhem when he decided to step in while wearing his full costume, armor, and weapons, and while Livewire laughed at his looks a bit, he was on full combat mode. He decided to use a jutsu he took years to develop to counter Livewire's ability to use electricity, which was similar to the lightning armor used by the 5th Raikage. The wind moved at extreme speeds around him, and even gave him the ability to fly, which was something that Livewire did not anticipate, and it seemed that well he was from another world. The principles of chakra-controlled elements seemed to work here still, as he was able to handle some if not all of her attacks. He then used his water jutsu that he spent a lot of time learning from both Kakashi, when his Jonin sensei was still alive, and also from Mei, who taught her use of water jutsu to him. He unleashed a powerful series water blast to force her back, and then unleashed a wave of Mizubushin. That was no mean feat since water-based chakra was not his type, but it worked as Livewire was shorted out and he left the scene, but not before leaving a note to Superman. Once he got back to the hotel, he bemoaned the fact that during the battle, his cloak got singed a bit by a lightning blast from the crazy woman, though Kurama replied that it was a small price to pay to face a new and interesting foe. He kept his promise and did not reveal Clark's role as Superman, and when he finally decided to leave Metropolis, he went back to the planet in Henge, as a delivery guy, made his way to where Clark's desk was and left another note. One that said that he was now leaving the city and still intended to make sure that he will keep his promise of not compromising Clark's secret. As he left to the elevators, he passed none other than Clark and Lois, and merely grinned secretly as he went down the elevator and spotted Clark as he read the note. Once he was out of the planet, he headed off to get his things, check out of the hotel and make his way to the nearest airport. He was rather curious about those things, and hoped that it was not going to be a bad ride. Just what and who he was going to find in Gotham was still unknown, but he could bet 10 to 1, it was going to a man dressed like a bat, and fought like a ninja, if he was lucky, and since he had the luck of the devil as some of his friends and family called it. He had no doubt he was going to meet the Dark Knight, on what set of circumstance, though he had no idea. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.